I don't know what the story is for the summer. I know too it doesn't make a difference where we meet. Yeah, you prefer, yeah. So I have to see what's with my son. Certainly when he's away at camp, which is the first month of the summer, from June 26th and on, so we can meet here. But otherwise, he might, the rest in July, in August, we'll have to wait and see. So June, anyway, we'll have to decide what we're going to do after this man is over here. Anyway, Chov Gimel off at the top. Talmud, we learned over there. His Gemara in Bechoros, as it says here on the side, Karlachi Asir, if a guy called the ninth animal coming out of the pen, the 10th animal, Asirichi, in the 10th animal, he called the ninth animal, Lachadasar, he called the 11th animal, Asiri, the 10th animal, so he did 10, 9, 10, right? Number 9 was called 10, number 10 was called 9, and number 11 was called 10. Shloshim Ukudashim, they're all three karbanos, story about Ma'aser Behemoth, of course. Hachi Nechal B'Mum, the ninth one is eaten when it gets a mum. No, it's not sacrificed. It's kachim, it's not sacrificed. And we're going to explain why in a minute. V'asir, the 10th one, is the actual Ma'aser, despite the fact that you call it the ninth. V'achadasar, on the 11th one, Karb Shlomim, it's brought as a Shlomim, not as a Ma'aser Behemoth. How do we learn this out? Yeh Kodesh. It says, it shall be holy. Melamed Shakdusha Chalachi. That tells us that the Kedusha applies to everything which can be called 10th. The 9th called by mistake the 10th. Val Chadasar and the 11th called by mistake the 10th. Yoli Korbash name, do they both get sacrificed? Tamlomar Bakar. It says Bakar, and it says another time Bakar L'Rabos Echadasar, to include the 11th. Okay? So now, Yeh Kodesh is a riboy. Bakar second time is a riboy. So you know the 9th is Kodesh and the 11th is Kodesh. Now what? So what is it? So why it say min habakar, which is an exclusion, the min lo tisachi, to preclude the 9th from actually being sacrificed, rather graze it till it gets a mum and then you redeem it. So it's kedushas domim, not kedushas mizbeach, which is a rarity, very, 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 very strange thing usually, because normally we say anything which is really suitable to mizbeach goes to mizbeach, but here even though it's suitable to mizbeach, it does not go on top of the mizbeach. Okay, so that's what we say. So that it's included, but not only for it until it gets a mum, and then it's redeemed. So it says the Gemara, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Why including 11th low teaching and excluding the 9th from being sacrificed? So it's because since after the pasuk included, it excluded. And so therefore, when you want to apply the ribuy on the one hand, the mute on the other hand, you want to find a place to say it. So you say, Masaya Kodesh Naset Tmura, when does Kodesh make Tmura? In other words, if you have something which is Kodesh, when could it make something else Kodesh as well? When can it make something else Kodesh as well? Is it before the fun of al-achrav? Is it before it's Kodesh or after it's Kodesh? Havi Omer al-achrav. It's after it's Kodesh, obviously. So to here, Marbani Achadasar, include the 11th, Shuachar Kedusha, which is after the 10th, as the one to be sacrificed. Motzi Aniyas Achin, I preclude the 9th, Bimnei Shulivnei Kedusha, because it's before the stuff became holy. Ad Kedun Kasavar Bo Shukasir V'Kori Asiri. I understand that this is a case where it's shogeg. He thinks it's the 10th, calls it the 10th, even though it's the 9th or the 11th. What if he knows it's the 9th? The Korea Asiri nonetheless calls it the 10th, though it's intentional mistake. So Chavraya mean Kodesh Machlokas. The Chevra said it's Kodesh, Rabbi Yunan Omer lo Kodesh, Rabbi Yunan said it's not Kodesh. Masnisa, our Mishnah Messiah the Chevraya, it's a proof for the Chevraya who say it's Kodesh. How so? Because it says in our Mishnah, oh, Beisil Beishamai, Beisil said Beishamai, Eina Tamoidim, don't you concede? Shetei Tevit Tire Boy there. There's a story about when there was, when the guy was, Matir is Neder, right, on Nazirus, right? And he had an animal, so Beis Shammai says that it goes out to graze, and Beis Hillel says, Beis Hillel says it reverts to Chol, Beis Shammai says it does not. Beis Shammai says it does not revert to Chol. So, for an Nazir, and he was shol on his Nazirus. Okay? So Amar Beisil Yerushalmi, Iyatem Moedim, Shetetz V'Tir Beta, don't you concede that it should go out and become Chlim? Or Beishamai said to Beisil, no. Iyatem Moedim B'Shetor, don't you concede that if somebody made a mistake, we call the Chi Asiri, and call the 9th one the 10th one, the Asiri Chi, and the 10th one the 9th one, Chai Asiri, and the 11th one again the 10th one, Shemukudash, that it's consecrated, Veda Mikabli Minho, to Shemukudash, period. So therefore, just like over there, the mistake still makes Kodesh, so to over here, mistake still makes Kodesh. Now, says the Gemara, V'inun Beis Hillel Mekablin Minho, right? They accepted that argument, Beis Hillel. In other words, they didn't repudiate that argument, and the low came to Sivinun, and if they did not accept the argument, they should have responded. They should have said, Matem Shivim. It says it, by the way, it's not V'Einon, it's V'Inun. They're Mekabel's argument. Looking, because if not, you see V'Inun. They should have sent the Beis Shammai, Matem Shivim. What are you responding from Meiser? Osanu, to us. I mean, Dover, from something, it should be She'eno, not in Sohoya. She'eno Kodesh El Betos, something which is only Kodesh Betos, unintentionally, right? Meiser Bein with the 9th or 11th animal can't become Kodesh unless it's a mistake. Al Dover Shu Kodesh Bein Betos, Ben Shlo Betos. What's the cross reference to our case, where it's by Nazir, where it's Kodesh no matter what, whether it's a mistake or not. In other words, the issues are not comparable. Since the Beis Hillel didn't say such a chiluk, that there by Meiser Beima it works only if it's a mistake and not if it's intentional, and by Nazir obviously the Kavanas are Kodesh, regardless of whether it's a mistake or intentional. So since the Beis Hillel didn't draw such a distinction, it must be that there is no such distinction. It must be that Meiser Beima, even if you intentionally made the 9th into the 10th by calling it unintentional, by calling it by the name 10th, that works as well. Says more, not necessarily, and this is an obvious answer. More says, Kaidam Rabbi, like Rabbi said, Ashire, not Asiri. Ashire Havachuva, they were very rich in answers. They had other answers they could have given, but they still could have repudiated Beis Shammai by saying there's no comparison between Meiser Behema and in our case of Nazirus. They could have said, they didn't bother. Oyeva Kaidam Rabbi Nasser, like Rabbi Nasser said, a similar idea, Ki'idish, like the individual, these trained Tamino has two reasons, and only advances one of them. So Sotir Beis Hillel could have rejected Beis Shammai's as far in many ways and said, we don't hold the Vekdesh Tos, and whatever, and they could have said on the other end that it's not comparable because here by Nazir, the roots Ben Betos, Ben Amazing, and there it's only Betos, but they didn't bother saying all the explanations they possibly could have in repudiating Beis Shammai Shita, but they still exist, and therefore you can't draw from the fact that Beis Hillel didn't respond in a specific way to Beis Shammai's challenge. You can't infer anything about Beis Hillel's position on the matter. So we don't know if they hold like Chefraya that it's that intentionally calling the 9th, the 10th is Kodesh or not. Okay. How we know if it's toast or not?
Even with toast. I think the difference between Nazir and the case of Meiser would be theoretically that Nazir is always Kodesh even toast, right?
No, Nazir is Kodesh even not toast. The opposite.
Even not toast.
Meiser name is only Kodesh toast. Then your intention become a Nazir. No, that's exactly the Gemara's point. The Gemara wants to know what happens if Meiser Behema, you intentionally made Meiser Behema a rye. Right. So in that case, the Gemara is saying that maybe we can extrapolate from here that Beis Hillel concedes that Beis Hillel holds that does not work. You can't make Meiser Behema a rye because no, say the opposite. Same. He must hold you can make Meiser Behema a rye. A rye means not Ayin Resh Aleph Yud, but A-W-R-Y, right? You can actually make So Chevraya said you can make Meiser Behema a raya. And we wanted to bring a raya from our Mishnah, because it must be that Meiser Behema is comparable to Nazir, because Beis Hillel accepts that premise and doesn't repudiate that premise. They accepted there's something comparable. So if by Nazir, the Karbanos are Kadosh, whether it's intentional or unintentional, because again it's Beis Shammai speaking, so Ekdesh Tos works by Nazir. And also, definitely if you do Nazir intentionally it works. So it must be that also by Meiser Behema, whatever it's about by Meiser Behema, which is calling the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th, the 10th, also works Ben Mezid, Ben B'Shogeg, no matter what. No, but that didn't want to repudiate that.
It's not like the same thing. When we have like saying, I'm not a Nazir, but I'm calling it a Nazir. Like that.
That what?
It's not an equal case where he's actually a Nazir. Like the Mazi over here is not a Nazir.
Really, it's not 100% comparable. But the Gemara wants to say that by virtue of the fact that the Mishnah over here compares the two, so maybe whoever holds whatever parameters X by Nazir holds the same parameters by Bay, Meiser Behema. And where it says, could be that Beis Hillel doesn't agree with that. Could be Beis Hillel rejects the premise. But the Beis Hillel rejected another way. Just to refresh our memories, the way Beis Hillel rejected our Mishnah is to say that Meiser Behema is not the same thing as Nazir. The Raya by Meiser Behema, it's not completely your discretion, because if you want to make the 8th or the 12th Meiser Behema, you have no right to do that. It's only the 9th, 10th, and 11th. And you can't do the 8th or 12th, whether it's intentional or unintentional, right? So if it says no way Beis Shammai can infer, just like the mistake over there works, the mistake by us over works, because there are limitations there. If you're going to say every mistake works, then the mistake of 8 and 12 should work as well, right? The mistake of 8 and 12 can't work, so much of the special says Kosov by Meiser Behema on the 9th, 10th, and 11th. But what Beis Hillel did not answer Beis Shammai is that it's not comparable, because by Meiser Behema it only works the toes, not b'mezid. So it must be Meiser Behema also works b'mezid. That was the Gemara's premise. Gemara rejected and said it could be Meiser Behema Taka doesn't work b'mezid. It could be Beis Hillel could repudiate the comparison by Meiser Behema by saying Nazir obviously works b'mezid, and Meiser Behema doesn't work b'mezid. There's no comparison between the two. It's apples and oranges. But Beis Hillel instead gives another answer, which is to say that obviously toes is not the factor which makes Meiser Behema Kadosh, and toes doesn't work across the board like Beis Shammai wants to contend, because then even the 8th and the 12th should be Kadosh. And the 8th and 12th are not Kadosh, only the 9th, 10th, 11th, it must be that not all toios work. If not all toios work, it must be a special Xeris HaKosuv by Meiser Behema, which one cannot then extrapolate to the case of Nazir. Okay? Says Mishnah further. Mishnah Nadar ben Nazir, somebody who took a netter to become a Nazir. Baruch Levi is Bamto. And he went to bring his animal to sacrifice. Umitzah shenignava. They found that the animal was stolen. Imach lo nignava be'emo Nazar. If he took the netter of Nazirs before the animal was stolen, a raised a Nazir. It's a bound Nazir. Excuse me. And he's got to find other animals. V'mi shenignava be'emo chazar Nazar. If, however, he became Nazir after the animal was stolen, and therefore at the time he debated the netter, he was relying on those animals, ain't no Nazir. So now the animals are gone. It's like a T'nai and the Nazirus. It's not Chal. Now Zuto's Nachum Ishamadi, this mistake Nachum Ishamadi made, K'sha'ol Nazir min Agola, when Nazirim came from Bavel, after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and what's the Beis Hamikdash Chorev? Amlem Nachum Ishamadi. Nachum Ishamadi said to them, Ilo Yisem Yodish Beis Hamikdash Shasili Chorev. He said, he gave them a Pesach. He said, were you to know the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed? Noitim Mason, would you become Nazirim? Amulo Lav. He said, no. V'tir Nachum Ishamadi. Nachum Ishamadi let them off to look at their Nazirus. Because of Pesach. Right? Because how they know the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed, they would not have made Nazirus. Because once the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, you can't undermine your Nazirus anymore. Shabbat Dabrei Tzachon when the Merke the Chacham they said no. Kol Shenazar actually a little bit Chor Beis Hamikdash Nazir. If he took the Nazirus before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, he's a Nazir even at destruction. Why? Because ain't Poskim Benola. You can't use as a Pesach something which wasn't around at the time of the Neder. And here the Beis Hamikdash was standing at the time of the Neder. So you can't use the Pesach that were you to have known the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed. Right. Sisu stone baby. Ukshabad Davrei Tzachomim. I'm sorry. Ukshabad Beis Hamikdash. Ukshabad Beis Hamikdash. If he took the Nazirus, once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, but it wasn't known to him, so because he was in Babel. So obviously that's not considered Noila because the condition existed, just was unknown to him at the time of the Nazirus, and then that could serve as a valid Pesach. Okay? Manakami says, what kind of animal are you talking about? So now parking the marketplace in marketplace, I'm noticing this animal shovel which is passed. I feel and even if the animal is stolen, Nazir Garas. It's a beautiful interpretation of Moshe on this. He says, when you took the neder on the animal, it was not B'Rishuscha, right? It was just walking down the street in the village. Now it's also not B'Rishuscha. What difference does it make? So what changed? Why should you not be a Nazir anymore? Just before it was Yerushalmi, now it's also not Yerushalmi. You're not aware of its whereabouts right now, but still it's not, halachically it's the same parameters. So therefore he says again that it says going to be a Nazir even if he took the oath after the animal was stolen, Nazir should be a Nazir because the animal was not just to begin with. So therefore what he was saying about sacrificing it is not realistic. And if he held that he had an animal, and it turns out it turns out he doesn't have any animal, so do you say such a thing that a person was rich, then he became poor, so he loses the zeros? Obviously not. And here too, just because he came home and couldn't find the animal, that doesn't make his zeros fall off. So we're talking about a final case. A person says, Haredi Nazir Behema Sheyeshli B'Socha Bayis. He knows he has an animal inside his house, and he takes in the Nazirus based on an animal. He went and he found it. Shenignava that was stolen. In that case, so he definitely knew he had an animal. He definitely made a Nazirus on it out tonight. So if before the animal stolen, he took a Nazirus on based on that animal, I raised a Nazir, it's valid Nazir. If however he knew the animal was in his house, but now it was stolen, so Nazir ain't Nazir. Now he's not Nazir because it's not Nolad. He told us that at the time he took neder, it wasn't there, and therefore it's a valid purpose, valid Pesach, in order to be matir the neder. Okay? Talmidei the Rabbi Chia bar Lulaini. To the students of Rabbi Chia bar Lulaini, they said, Rabbi Yehuda asked the following query, which of course he didn't answer. What did the Gandavin give it back that night? Does the Nazirus begin from the morning when he took it, or from here on in? Now, there are two ways of learning this Yerushalmi. One way of learning Yerushalmi is that the Nazirus never was broken, right? It's just a question of when you count the 30 days. You count it from the time when you made Nazirus to the time when you have the animals. But the Nazirus never broken. The other interpretation, which requires more of a sledgehammer, but is more logically consistent, I think, is that we're asking, does the Nazirus commence at all, does the Nazirus just broken? In other words, when you find the Nazir, the carbonas that night, so do I say, well, it's retroactively, since they weren't obviously truly lost, you did start in the Nazirus, or you say since they were lost for an instant period in the middle, so therefore the Nazirus never began. And if you want to begin the Nazirus, you have to begin from scratch. So according to the first part, the question is whether the time elapsed from its loss till now counts as Nazirus. According to the second question, according to the second approach, which I brought down, the question is whether in this case the person becomes a Nazir at all. If at the time he took the Nazirus, he thought there was an animal, the animal proved not to be around.
What if the fowl made the years?
What?
What if the fowl was the Irish? Does it make a difference? Even if it's
I don't know. I don't think it made a difference. I mean, then I guess you would never rely on it.
which even if it's more factor, but he already made the years.
Yeah, so then it wouldn't be. I assume that in that case, his Nazirus never took effect. No, more doesn't discuss. More doesn't say more than we just saw. Anyway, Zutos to Nachum Mishamodi. This mistake, as we said, our mission was made by Nachum Mishamodi. Matzah, one mistake that he made, Shepesel and Nolad. He opens the dam with Nolad. On them then there was the Nolad, top of Chav Gimel base. On them he said, Ilo Isim Nacholem Nachum Mishamodi. He said to them, Ilo Isim Yadisha Beis Hamikdash Shal Zili Chorev. If you knew the base is going to be destroyed, no generation said would have taken the nether. So you know what he should have said, which would have been a vow of Pesach? He should have said to them, would you have known that the prophets have already prophesied? In other words, not on the Churban itself, but on the Vuas about the Churban. That's not a Neuland, because the Nevi'im have been shrying, they've been shouting for years that Am Yisrael is going to have to undergo the Churban, right? So again, that would not be Neuland. Rabbi said, not true, Odung Nolad, that's also Nolad, Kinolad. Yochad Avmeir, because they could have said, Yad Avinon, we knew the base was destroyed, Avinon Savrin, we thought the Milaya Rechoikin, that it's going to be a very long thing, in the very distant future, and therefore that would consider to be sufficient that we would assume that it's Nolad, because they didn't, even if they heard Nevuos, they didn't take the Nevuos that seriously, and therefore that would be considered to be Nolan, because they thought it would happen really only sometime in the future.
Maybe they didn't take it seriously, they thought that destroyer would do shiur. Also taking it seriously.
What?
Maybe they thought that the Yehuda would do shiur.
Maybe they thought that would make it that could make it Nolan too, but they probably were very pragmatic. They realized that's not going to happen. Right. Okay, now we have a Maisa.
We never solved the problem when he got it back, right?
What? No, we never solved it. Just left the thing. When he got it back, we never solved it. Avin serving the Milai Rechikin says that Chazona Sharu Chazeh, even the Cheskel led him astray. Chazona Sharu Chazeh Yomim Rabim. The vision which they saw for many, that they thought would only occur many days in the future. All right, now we have a cool Maisa which we had a long time ago, 3 years ago, more in Brachos. Tani. Been more than 3 years. Tani, Shlosh Mos Nazirim Olabi Meshir Medchetach. 300 Nazirim came up in the days of the Shir Medchetach. Me'ev Chamisha Motzah and Pesach, 150 down in Pesach to undermine the Nazirus. Me'ev Chamisha Lo Motzah and Pesach, 150 not find a Pesach. Or Sagaba Yanei Malka, so Shir Medchetach, he came to Yanei Malka. Normally they said, Isal Tlas Me Nazirim. There are 300 Nazirim here. Bright Lat Chamios Karbonin. They need 900 korbanos. Now, how many were there actually left? 150. How many korbanos they actually need? 450. So when Shimon Cheta went up and said we have 900. So he says, I'll tell you what. You, King Yana, give half. I'll give half. Right? So you give 4. I guess they were poor. I don't know. It's a good question. So so you give 450 and I'll give 450. So Shalchei Arba Mechamish, he sent him 450, which is all he needed. Also Lishna Bisha. So Lashna went to the king. Armalei. So they said to the king, Lo Yami Dei Klum. Right? He didn't give anything of his own. He only used your 450 korbanos, right? So he didn't need the other 450. So Shama Yanai Malka Yanai heard this lashon hara. He cursed and he got angry. Shimon Shetach Yanai was upset. Varak and he fled. Some days later, sometime later, some great people came, the Persian kingdom, to visit Yanai, King Yanai. They said, we remember, there was a certain old man here. He would say in front of us, my very wise words. We want to hear him again. So he told them, Yanai said, he's not here because of this whole episode with the Nazir. Alone, so they said to Yanai, Shlach, I say, go and bring him for us. We want to see him anyway. Shlach, so he sent a message. Yoav Lemila, he gave him his word, he's not going to harm him. Vaisi saying they brought Yanai back. Asa, so Yanai came, Yosef ben Malka, so he sat between the king and the queen. So Yanai said, Lama appeal to me, why'd you make a mockery of me? Right? By saying, I'll give 450, you give 450, and you give you 450. So he said, a cool answer. I didn't make mockery of you. At me momonoch. You paid up your 450 from money. And I paid with my Torah. Meaning, Taka wants 300 Nazir. And they Taka needed 900 korbanos. So you gave 450 physical korbanos for half, and I gave 450 spiritual korbanos by being matir than adorim. It's a gewaltige chap, right? So we see that Torah can. I'm not even sure I put this in this without principle. Right, that's a little bit of a flaw, but nevertheless, that was his point. But that's why I did it this way. And the word means on a pasuk. The Chesiv says, "Ki b'tzel ha'chochma," in the shadow of wisdom, b'tzel ha'kesem, in the shadow of money. So money and wisdom are correlated. Normally, so they said, well, Marakas, if you had that legitimization, legitimate reason, why'd you flee? Normally, so he said, I'll tell you. Shamis, I heard the Ma'ikras, I heard my master, you the king, are upset at me. V'kaimis Sadein Quran, I fulfilled this puzzle. Kabiki Rega, wait for a moment, they until the anger passes. The Kara Olai, I said about Shimon Chetach, the Yisron Das Chachma, additional knowledge of wisdom, additional wisdom of knowledge, the Chayab Aleh will give life force to its possessors. Amar Aleh, so then Yanai asked him, so why did you change between the king and the queen? Amar Aleh, so he said, I'll tell you. Again, B'sira the Beisira, the Bar Sira, in Bar Ben Sira, the Tzib, says, Sausalah, Torah, take up baskets of Torah, Uturam Memcha, and the Torah itself will uplift you. Uben again, among the noblemen, Toshivecha will give you a seat. Amrle, so Yanai said, Havule Kasa, let's give him a cup, the Nibricha, let's bench. Yavule Kasa, so they gave him a cup. Umar, and he said, Nevarecha Mozit Shocha Yanai v'Chaveirov. He didn't say Nevarech Elu Shel Mishalo. What did he say? Let us bless God on the food which was eaten by Yanai and his friends. Amrle, so Yanai got upset again. He said, Adkadu, until now, because you are still stiff-necked. You're making fun of me, right? Saying brachas on the food which I ate. Say regular bracha. So says the more Amrle, so he said, Yevon leva achol. I'm sorry. That's good. The Amrle said, well, my name, or what should I say? The Baruch HaMazon Shelo Chalu. That's sense of humor, Shimon Chetach. I should say we met Baruch. The Baruch yes, they did. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's times for everything. So say, so what's he going to say? The guy should make a bracha on the food I didn't get to eat. He didn't give me lunch. So he says. So Shimon Chetach said. So Yanai said, "Yevel may give him food v'achal," and he ate. V'amai, they said, The Varech HaModin Shalcham, the proper Lashon of Zimun. Rabbi Yochanan said Chalukin Hashem Metchetach. The other Chavosal are the Hashem Metchetach. On what? Rabbi Yochanan Rishonim. Initially he said the Varech HaModin Shalcham Hashem Metchetach. So after that they say you can only lead a Zimun if you yourself have eaten, which is the way, of course, you pass, right? Right, they even argue in the second point, because then Shimon got to eat, but he didn't get to eat bread. He ate vegetables, or something like that. And nevertheless, he led a zimun. So they argue on him, and we do as well, because we hold you can't lead a zimun unless you actually had bread. You can add to the zimun even if you just had peiros, but you can't lead a zimun unless you had bread. So it says the Gemara, Mechava Shita say the Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah seems to contradict himself. Tam and Tzri Cholei. Elsewhere, it's a question by him whether somebody who ate vegetables can lead zimun. The Kav Shita, it's partially that it's not. So it says more no. Hand the Tzri Cholei. There with there where he's in doubt. Karabana. It's like Rabbana, which we'll see in a minute. Hand of Shidley, the one where it's clear to him that will you see that? No, he won't see. The Pnei Moshe brings down the Rabbanan from Brachas. That the Rabbanan over there that seems to hold, according to Chachamim, then Brachas, that it doesn't matter if the guy ate or not, he still gets to. It doesn't matter if he ate bread or not, still gets to lead zimun. No, that's a question. According to Abban's question, he gets to eat it. Hey, in the Pshitale, here that it's clear to him that you can't do it. You can't make a bracha unless you can't lead the zimun unless you have bread. Krab Rishon Gamliel, it's going like a Rishon Gamliel.
Here he says he was only wrong about the Rishon.
What?
He says that the Rishon did wrong. The Rishon was okay, even though he only ate bread.
Oh, right, you're right. Sorry, Rabbi Yirmiyah for the second case is okay. Right, true, good point. So Klab Shitla here it says it's okay that you Rabbi Yirmiyah led the benching. That's Krashin Gamliel says it's okay. Guy who learned all of Esav and Tavali more. The guy went up and he dunked dunked some stuff and in vegetables and dip, right? Even though he didn't eat a kazayis of grain, mizamnin, they can include him in a zimun, dirachon, but he of course cannot lead the zimun. Rabbi Yaakov Rashem Yochim said, "Lo may mizamnin love. We cannot be mizamnin on him ad shel kazayis dogan unless he eats kazayis dogan. And we of course don't pass because he has to eat grain." Now, what about the Rishon Gamliel, the case which holds that even you have vegetables? V'adatane shtayim paser yerg mizamnin. That should you learn that when two guys had bread and one guy had vegetables, any one of them can mizamin, even the guy who only had vegetables, that's masnisa, that price is going like Rishon Gamliel. So if you like Rishon Gamliel, then the second case is clearly okay. The Yanai could lead Shimon Sheta could lead benching. The other Rabbanan, no, he can't lead benching unless he himself eats a gazayas of grain. Okay? So we of course pass it. You can't leave benching unless we had grain, bread. You can answer no matter what. Okay. Says the Gemara, there were two guys walking down the street, and somebody comes up and said them. One of them says, "I already know that she's I'm a Nazir." If this guy's Ruben, I already knows I'm a Nazir. She'eno, right? Who? It's not Ruben. Hareini Nazir, or somebody says, I'm a Nazir, She'echam became Nazir, if one of you was a Nazir. Somebody says, She'ein echad mehem Nazir. I'm only Nazir if neither of you are Nazir. She'shneicha Nazir, I'm only Nazir, both of you are Nazir. She'kul Nazir, we're all Nazir. Be'shamai and Kul Nazirim. Be'shamai says, in all these cases, swapping Nazir says the Chumrah. Right? So therefore, in all these cases where Mesupach, what his intention was, that the Machmir becomes a Nazir. Beisil says no. A Nazir elamisha on this guy miltvar. Nazir is only somebody whose words are not sustained, which means only somebody whose words were sustained. In other words, somebody who If Yitaka was, one guy said it's Reuven, the other guy said Shimon, Yitaka came out to be Reuven, then the first guy becomes a Nazir.
Which the Rambam says even if it wasn't Reuven?
Yeah, because they old Hektish Tos is Shmei Hektish. There's Hektish Tos. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Ein Echad Mehem Nazir, neither of them is a Nazir. Why? Because he says something Nazirus is L'Kula. And therefore here it's a Safik, it's a Kula. And even if it turns out later on that he was correct, that it was Reuven, nevertheless, it's at the time it's a Safik, it remains a Safik. Ki Yatir La'achora. Now what if the guy turns around and they never find out who it is? But Shimon Omer, Shimon says, Yomar, he should be a Nazir Misafik. He should say, Ima Yokid Vorai. If I was correct that it was Reuven, Arei Nazir Chov, I'm a mandatory Nazir. Milav, if not Arei Nazir Nadava, I'm a voluntary Nazir. Rosa Koi. Now we have 10 guys here. 10 guys see a koi. We don't even know exactly what a koi is. It's some kind of half goat, half sheep, something like that. Animal which is of, what? The jeep. That's right. That's what it's called. The jeep. So he sees a jeep. I'm glad you remember that. So he sees a jeep. He says the Rosa Koi V'Areni Nazir Shazeh Chayim. We know it's a Chayim Behema. So guy number one says, I'm a Nazir, it's a Chayim. The other guy says, I'm a Nazir, Shane's a Chayim, a Nazir, it's not a Chayim. Then the guy says, I'm a Nazir, Shazeh Behema. Then another guy says, I'm a Nazir, Shane's a Behema. I'm a Nazir, Shazeh Chayim, U Behema, both. I'm a Nazir, Shane's a Lo Chayim, Lo Behema. Right, so for up to 6. I'm a Nazir, Shechem, Mechem Nazir, I'm a Nazir if one of you is Nazir. I'm a Nazir, Shane, this is all the same case. Nazir she'enechad mikem Nazir, right? Then neither of you is a Nazir. I'm a Nazir she'shnechem Nazir. That both of you, the first 2 guys, are Nazir. And finally, the 10th guy says, I'm a Nazir she'kulchem Nazirim. That all of you are Nazirim. Harei kula Nazirim. The Mishnah says they're all Nazirim because the Koi has elements of all these things. Has elements of all these things. So everybody's a shtickle on Nazir here, right? Because everybody's a little bit accurate. No machlokas here, right? The more is going to discuss it. Says Makini Mazdisa, there's a way to read the Mishnah. Mishnah is kaimut for if it's whoever can says in the Mishnah, Mishalon is kaimut for, right? What it really means to say is if it says Mishnah is kaimut for, whoever turned out to be right, he is the one who becomes a Nazir. It's like Lashon Hafuchu. It's like we call saying about Lashon Sagi Nor. We call somebody who's blind full of light. So it's also indirect. Like a woman who says, the low carvet's been a bride, I take an oath that I will not bury my son, right? If so-and-so is true. What she really means to say is she's taking an oath that if what she's saying is not true, that she should bury her son, right, as a sign of her guilt. So it's the same idea. Sometimes we use a backwards lashon. Ein echad mihem Nazir. One in the ratio is neither than Nazir. Shein Nazirus el Asrei. Nazirus is only Nazirus if it's something for which you could have given definite warning. Right? In other words, the renew ahead of time. The classic case of Asra Safik Lav Shma Asra. There's a case where you don't see something properly, right? So here it's like Asra. It's like a case where Adam can't get proper asra. So that's why they're all exempt from the death penalty. Okay? So that's, it's like the same thing. In other words, asra something doesn't really apply by Nazir, right? That's why some people even change the girsa. But the idea is that you have to be, a Nazir has to be a definite Nazir. How should I put this? There's a halacha by all Nedarim and Shvus. You have to definitely know what you're saying. What? Right, it has to be moved flow, right? It has to be enunciated with knowledge of what you're saying. So ever since at the time he took the netter, he couldn't have known it was the Reuven or Shimon. That's why it's not. It's like Asra Safek. We don't know what whether you were doing is right or wrong. So do the same thing. It's not valid in this use. Now, says the Gemara, a new thing. What about where the guy ran away? We don't know. So even not according to Rabbi Tarfon. Or died Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda, and that's okay. Omar, the zero suffix mutter, because there's suffix the zero, and therefore it's okay. Manachem. What's the case of Mishnah? Imish is El Mer Reuven. Guy number one says it's Reuven. V'zomer Shimon, and the guy number 2 says it's Shimon. Manavshach. What difference does it make? Ruvainu Naziru. It's Ruvain, the first guy's a Nazir. Shimon, if it's Shimon, Nazir, the second guy's a Nazir. So somebody's going to become a Nazir nonetheless, right? Rather, what's the case where none of them become a Nazir? B'shazel mer Ruvain, v'zel mer Shimon. One said it's Ruvain, the other said Shimon. He tir la'achorav, and he jumped backwards, he went away, and Eino lo Ruvain v'lo Shimon. And he's neither Ruvain nor Shimon, in other words, you don't know if he's Ruvain or Shimon. What? Right. But in that case, none of them would be Nazir. None of them would be Nazir. If they're not to be Levi. We're trying to find a case where they both could be Nazir. Okay? Circle. Yeah, okay, so again, if it's a suffix, Eino Nazir Doi, there will be Shimon, like a Shimon, Oimer, Eino may be a car, we don't be a car, but Zeus, Achia, and the Shabbat shows it, Achia, Nazir Bada. Again, you have to know it's definitely a Nazir. Time. Now, getting back to last case of Mishnah, V'kulan, among all of them, Monitation Nazirios, there are 9 Nazirios. Who says, well, wait a minute, I counted on my fingers before, Eino and Esther, there were 10 guys, right? Now, If Shashlo is Kaim with and one of them has got to be off balance, and specifically, at least the guy who says, "I'm a Nazir," that both of you are Nazir, right? They're not really both Nazir. They're best both Nazir, only Misafik, right? They're not truly both Nazir. So therefore, at least that guy shouldn't be a Nazir at all, right? So therefore, it's not really 10; it's 9, right? Amar Rabbi Yasser said the Beis Shamayu. Now, the Sefer, like Dr. Goodell said before, is like Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai Mektish Tos Hektish. Beis Shammai says Hektish Tos is Hektish, right? Otherwise, you would say Rabbi Shimon in the Sefer and say that Nazirus is Lohakim. So the only reason I say all 9 are Nazir in the Sefer is how could they all be Nazir? That was your point, right? Yeah, that's what we said, but the Gemara then says not that way. So that's how the Pnei Moshe explained in the Mishnah. But the Gemara is arguing now. They'll say it's not true, there aren't elements of all of it, and it's Taka Hektish Tos, and therefore it doesn't work. Okay? How only works according to Beis Shammai. Okay? As usual in all Masechtas and Shas, we only learn what a Nazir is at the end of the Masechta. Well, it's not quite the end yet, there's a bunch more prakim. But we're past halfway in the number of prakim in the Masechta. So, of course, as I said, the Gemara always lets us know what we're talking about only at the very end. It's one of these interesting phenomena, right? What?
What's up with that?
Every Masechta is like that. Shlosh minim asur Nazir. There are 3 things which are forbidden by Nazir. Hatuma, v'atiglachas, v'yotzim min hagefer. Straight up, right? Hair cutting, hatuma, hair cutting, and anything comes out of wine. Now already we get to the Easter head part coming up. Anything which comes out of the grape is joined together. Ve'eno chayev, yet you're not liable. Even though you're also to drink grape juice, you're not liable for malchus unless you eat grapes, kizayis. Okay? Mishnah Rishayna says initially they used to say is also when you drink a revius of wine, right? What happened? What? I can't hear you. So, here's where we're going to have all the lumdus tomorrow night. Even a person soaked his bread in wine, and we can join the bread to the wine to make up a kazayis, not a revius, like a zayis, right? Usually wine is a shiur revius. Chayev, you're liable. So this is a case where heter is mitzaref le'isser. The permitted substance is actually batel, so to speak, in the osir substance. That's a rarity. Usually isser is batel to heter. Here heter is batel to isser. Okay? Says the Gemara. We're getting to all that. It's no, Mashu is not, you don't get malchus for that. You're supposed to get malchus. Okay, we're talking about flogging. We don't care. We're talking about the flogging, not the, of course, any amount is also, but we're talking about the flogging. Okay? Atuma d'chsiv. How do we know he's now allowed to become tummy? Here it is. D'chsiv koy me'azir l'Hashem, I'll call nefesh beis l'yavo. Right? You shouldn't come to contact with dead body. Tiglachas. D'chsiv it says koy me'neden Yisro, tar lo yavo rosho. No shavers. Hayetzim negevin d'chsiv koy me'nizro. Every as long as he's a nazir, mikol asher yasem megevin ayayim v'gomer. Everything made from the grapevine should not come into his mouth. Tiny Rabbi Zakai. Now, shifting gears for totally. Tiny Rabbi Zakai said, "Come Rabbi Yochanan." It'll come back to Nazir, but only much later. Zibech v'kiter v'nisech. A guy worshipped Avodah Zarah through sacrifice, through slaughtering a korban to Avodah Zarah, putting the korban on the mizbeach for Avodah Zarah, v'nisech, and lie by eating wine for Avodah Zarah. Be'alim echad, in one period of forgetfulness, chayav klachas pachas. Either you have to be a korban on each separate activity. We actually had this more back in Yerushalmi Shabbos. He said, Bavlaya, you Babylonian, you! You pass in your hand 3 rivers, meaning the 3 rivers between Babel and Eretz Yisrael. Vizbat, and you lost out anyway, because you didn't figure out how to learn. You're only liable for 1. Right, because there's no chiluk malachos by Avodah Zarah. There's only chiluk malachos by Shabbos. By Shabbos, each malachi do is mechayiv in the badly, but not according to Rabbi Yochanan by Avodah Zarah. Now, skipping the next 2 lines, I brought down here because they have to do Shabbos. Heina and Achas, the beginning of Klal Gadol, one of those things which stuff to do and of course pain to remember at this point. But in any event, just purely focusing on the issues at hand. Right, Bar Memel, boy Rabbi Zira, he asked him for Rabbi Zira. Why don't we learn out from Shabbos? Okay, the time of Shabbos, like you say, by Shabbos it says, Lo saseh kol melacha klau. That's the general principle, right? Lo savar eish b'chol moshvosechem prat. That's the specification, not to make fire. Lo avar b'klal, your avar was included in the totality of forbidden malachas and Shabbos. V'yotzav in a cloud lami comes out of the cloud to teach. Ma'avorim yuchedes ma'aseh yechidim, just like avara, the burning is unique in that it's a specific one of the avos. Ma'aseh is like ma'aseh yechidis. It's a specific one of the avos. Cherev lev ifnei atzma, and you're liable on it if you do it by itself. Avkol ma'aseh, so to each one of the lamites malachas. Sheish bo l'chayev lo b'ifnei atzma, you make it liable individually. And so say do the same thing by Avodah Zarah. Because lo sabdein, don't worship Avodah Zarah, is the cloud. Lo tishtachave prat. Lo tishtachave is the specification. Lo tishtachave, do not bow down. B'chlal was in the totality of forbidden Avodah Zarah melachos. Right? Why was it excluded from the principle, extracted from the general principle? It must be l'lamid, to teach us. To tell you, it's like Ishtachavoya is unique malacha in Avodah Zarah. The Chayov living liable by itself. Avkol Maiseh, so to every deed in Avodah Zarah, Sheish Bal Chayiv Lo B'Bnei Atzmo, Shmi Chayiv independently, like Rabbi Zakai said, and now like Rabbi Yochanan. Now I want you to know. This is actually staggering to me. I know I don't look staggered, but I am. It's just staggering to me. I never really thought before that this whole concept of Shabbos, Havora L'chalik Yotza, L'Agatha. It's a klal prat. And we have a principle of klal prat. Yotza Don Elokein Prat. Yet at the same time, we have in the Brayso Shmuel another principle, which is Kol Davar Sheyotza Min HaKlal Lamed, Lo Lamed Al Klal Atzmo Yotza, El Lamed Al Klal Kulo Yotza. And that's what learning Havora. Havora is the prat, which came out of the cloud in order to teach something about the entire cloud. Independently. So the difficulty in this sugya, which the sugya doesn't deal with, and which I never even thought of, is when do we say cloud prat, and when do we say that the prat was yotzim in a cloud lamed? Because I could have said the only law that's on Shabbos is Havora. The cloud lo sasam locha prat Havora, right? Cloud prat ema cloud mashba prat. Yet I don't say that. What do I say? No, the prat teaches us something about the cloud. See my difficulty? Yeah, but when do you say that? And when do you say cloud prat? What? No. Oh, that's what you meant to say? Havora is not new either. Havora was part of the cloud. Gone. All right. I don't know, because here's only one prat.
What you're saying is to exclude all other.
Right. But there aren't any other pratim. It wasn't. They weren't specified. They're not part of Shabbos. That's only an inference. They're not explicitly mentioned. Time to do that. But I was thinking one of two. The Gemara will address it to a certain extent, but not to my satisfaction. But I was thinking maybe by Shabbos at least one could say there's no cloud, true cloud, because the 39 melachos are not a cloud. Rather, they're loch l'mosh misinai. Or those also call melacha b'yom HaShabbos. Chomosh v'zechem b'yom HaShabbos is not a real cloud, but it's a loch l'mosh misinai because they don't know the 39 melachos. Right? We don't know what melacha is without a loch l'mosh misinai. So maybe this is unique in that it's not a cloud process when the Torah has a generalization and then a specification, and we know what the generalization would be, and then we have a specification next to it, but we don't know what the generalization means. So maybe it's not a cloud process. That's what I'm saying, but that's probably sheker. It could be that our sugi holds, and this would be more likely, that cloud prat generates cloud prat works as kol davar she'yotza min ha'klal lamed. The difficulty is I don't know how to reconcile that Rabbi Shmuel's brayso. The Shmuel's brayso, Shmuel Omer, has both clothing, cloud prat and kol davar she'yotza, kol davar she'bechlal. So I'm not sure exactly how to reconcile that. Again, as I said, they want to deal with it, but not satisfactorily and only indirectly. Okay. So says the Gemara, well, one answer the Gemara tries to give, which would answer a question, is, it says, B'Shabbos, Klav v'mokom echad prat v'mokom achad, the clouds in Shmois Chav. And as you look in Torah a little bit further up. The prat is in Shmos Lamed Hey. That's not called the cloud prat. That is the case where we say, Kol davar she'yotza min ha'klal lamed, lo lamed atzmo yotza, el cloud kol yotza. When the cloud prat are muchakim zemizeh. The problem is the Bavli doesn't hold that way. The Bavli holds, so all machlokas, a couple places with Bavli, with cloud prat and muchakim zemizeh, if you learn this cloud prat, but they don't say that that's the criterion by which you say, Kol davar she'yotza yot b'chlal. That's what the Yerushalmi proposes here. Depends on the juxtaposition or lack thereof between the cloud prat. So says the Gemara. So by Shabbos, cloud mokom echad prat mokom acher, but it's Zohar cloud shu b'tzaya prat. It's together, and therefore that's just a cloud. That's not a kol davar she'yot b'chlal, etc. Okay. Says the Gemara Amalei. But he said, no, not true. Boxi doesn't say, Lo tishtachave le'el acher. It says, Lo tishtachave le'el acher elsewhere. In Shmos Lamed Dalet, as opposed to the general list of Avodah Zarah, which is in Shmos Chav, right? So we see it's also a rei klal shkar mokum echor prat mokum acher. So it's you should say kol davar. So Armalesi said, since in one place they're written together, and there you can't say kol davar shiata. Therefore you can't say kol davar shiata when it's a different place. Okay? Chevrai said not true. Lo shani ben sheklav mokum echor prat mokum acher. Doesn't matter if they're distant from each other. Ben sheklav mokum echor mokum echad uprat mokum acher. It makes no difference. Klal upratu. It's a klal prat, but not what we know as a klal uprat, but rather the kol davar shiyotzim in a klal ulami. Even the klal prat are next to each other. We say the bit of kol davar shiyotzim in a klal yotzim in a klal ulami. So why by Shabbos yeah, and by Avodah Zarah nay? So by Shabbos klal v'chakach prat. It says first the klal, no doing loch, and then the prat of Avodah. By Avodah Zarah prat, first it says lo tishtachave Elohem, and then afterwards it says lo savdei. So when do I say kol davar shiyotzim in klal? When first it says the klal, and then it says the prat. By Avodah Zarah it says it backwards, right? Right. Zarah prat v'chakach klal. By Vilna that also doesn't matter. Lo shani mention klal v'chakach prat, mention prat v'chakach klal. Doesn't matter. Klal upratu, and again, not our definition of klal prat, but rather they're called the Mashiach Tzomina klal ulami. The Shabbos klal b'avodah, so prat b'avodah so. By Shabbos it's a klal by the avodas of Shabbos, and the prat is by avodas of Shabbos. By avodah Zarah, however, klal b'avodah Zarah, its generalities and its avodas uprat l'malachos kavah. Its specifications in that which is done to our Kodesh Baruch Hu. Meaning, by by Avodah Zarah it says lo savdei, and that means in the avodah of that Avodah Zarah. And lo tishtachave Elohem is even if that Avodah Zarah is not served that way. But since the Beis Hamikdash we do it, you can't do it to Avodah Zarah, right? So therefore it's not comparable. Because Melach Shabbos or Melach Shabbos are the same, but by Avodah Zarah there are two types of melachos. The melachos which are like poer lepoor, right? Or zorik even lemarkulis, where even though it's not a type of avodah which we do, it's also do the avodah zarah because it's type of avodah. And then there's the avodah which is also do because we do it to our Hashem, even though it's not done to that avodah zarah, which is ishtach avodah, right? So therefore, they're not comparable. So the clown prat can't teach anything about each other. Okay? Amar Mother said, "Havara shalol l'tzorech yotzda." Another reason to distinguish. Havara, there's no reason for it to come out. So it must be coming out in order to teach us the distinction in malachos. Hishtachavoya, bowing down, however, l'tzorech yotzda, it has a purpose why it came out. Lamida atzmot, to teach us you're chayiv on it, despite the fact she'eino ma'isa. It's not a true ma'isa. What does it mean it's not a true ma'isa? It's not, you don't do something as significant as, slaughtering, sacrificing, that's still your chayv, even though it's not a true ma'isa. The Saya, top of Chotei Rav, it goes called Dod the Tani Chizkiah. And Chizkiah taught us, Zoveach Le'Elohim Yochorom. It says if you sacrifice to another god, you're put to death. So that's the archetypical malach, one which has a big ma'isa, blood and guts attached to it. Because teaches you also chayv, despite the fact she'eino ma'isa. So says Mara, chelef. Maybe you'll say the opposite. That Ishtachavoya teaches us that the general principle, and slaughter comes to teach us that even slaughter you're chayav on, right? Says Mara, no, it's not logical. Davashu ma'isa melamed, so which is a ma'isa, from there we extrapolate. So which is not a Maisa, that would not be the basis, and therefore it has to teach us something about itself. So be that as it may, what happens is that the Maisa comes out is that by Shabbos, so far, we're saying that, although we're going to continue learning this further tomorrow night, but by Shabbos we come out saying that Havara does teach Chiluk Malachos, but Havara doesn't teach Chiluk Malachos. Now all this is eventually, in a few lines, going to lead back to Nazir. We'll get back to this tomorrow night.